So what can we take away from the Bledisloe game in Melbourne from an Australian perspective? That's what this video is about. Hit like, leave your comments, and subscribe. I'm Tim, this is Egg Chasers, and the first thing to say is well done to the Melbourne faithful. The Aussie locals came out in force to back their team, and I'm sure the Aussie team, gave a great account of themselves and really put... What's that? Sorry? Okay, no, they got battered. 38-7 by the old enemy. That's got a sting, hasn't it? But lots of good teams will lose to New Zealand. At least Eddie Jones wasn't building it up in the week. Oh no, that's right, he was. And not just in press conferences, but in a whole new media campaign on television. Maybe they're going to France for the cheese or the nice Mediterranean coastline. Who knows? Yeah, Eddie Jones kind of got his response from Scott Barrett and his New Zealand teammates on Saturday evening, didn't he? Where do you go from this, though? What lessons can we take away? Well, first thing to say is, well, I've got a video coming on New Zealand, so I'll park that. They were very good. That has to be said. And Australia were decent for a bit. We'll get onto that in a minute. But takeaways from this, Australia are in trouble with their scrum, particularly in the tight head position. Really sad to see a loyal servant of Australian rugby, Alan Alalatoa, is out. And Achilles injury is, the World Cup's gone. Most of next season, or I'm not sure how, I can't remember how the seasons work in the Southern Hemisphere. They've just anyway, the next year, basically, Alan Alalatoa is going to be out, and that's really cruel for any player, especially so close to a World Cup. But irrespective, that's awful. I'm wishing him a speedy recovery. That was only compounded by the issues with Taniela Tupou. I'm working on my pronunciation of the names of these teams. Bear with me, yeah? In fact, help. I quite like the phonetic descriptions that sometimes get us left in the comments. Ignorance is bliss, and I'm trying. But Taniela Tupou, yeah. What happened there? What was Eddie thinking? So you could argue that his decision to leave Tongan Thor on the field when he clearly had a rib issue was more damaging than the beatdown that they got on the scoreboard from New Zealand. Bearing in mind, Alan Alalatoa had just gone off, and Australia's tight head reserves are not deep. The second there's an issue, well, look after him, wrap the guy in cotton wool at that point. And it just compounded it even more, the fact that the yellow card, which hurt Australia all the more on the field, was caused because Taniela Tupou clearly couldn't tackle properly because he was trying to protect his damaged rib. So he may not be available in Dunedin for the game next week. Hopefully, he is available for the Rugby World Cup, or that will be just monumentally stupid on Eddie's part. On the flip side, in the front row, it was great to see Angus Bell. He was one of the positives for Australia. He's looking great. Big unit, put in a massive shift, and that's a big bonus. So at least on the loosehead side of the scrum, Australia are in a better place than they have been for a while. That's good. And there were other players that stood up. Bobby V, who hasn't been great, or no, that's not fair. He hasn't been as brilliant as he can be lately. He put in a really big performance along with guys like Mark Nwanganitawase as well. So there are some silver linings there. There is clearly talent with people like Coro and Betty and Karevi. Australia have got dangers. The problem is, and this is the second takeaway, they're not playing to their strengths. See, the thing with Dave Rennie, when you look back at him now, how much you missing Dave Rennie now, Aussie fans. When you look at Dave Rennie, he was a smart coach. He's a very smart coach, and wherever he has coached, and I saw him coaching for Glasgow and spoke to him many times in my work on rugby in the UK. And one thing is clear for Dave Rennie, he sees the players that are available to him, assesses what their strengths are, and then implements a game plan to bring out the best in what they can do. Whereas it feels a little bit like Eddie Jones has got his blueprint of how he wants to play or feels that he needs to play, and he's making the players try and fit that mould. Hence, he's gone for a much bigger pack, or the biggest pack he can possibly select. And he's playing a more structured game plan, which I don't think suits Australia and the players and the strengths that they've got. And what I don't understand about this is Eddie Jones, we've got the evidence of him from 2015 coaching Japan in a very pragmatic way, looking at the skill set that Japan had and then building a game plan around it with very low scrums that were quite effective in their way and a real quick attacking play. And it brought down South Africa and it got them to a Rugby World Cup quarter final. And then we saw how Japan built on that for 2019 as well. I don't understand that thinking with Eddie Jones. And I'm actually a big Eddie Jones fan generally. I think he is an exceptional coach, but maybe he is past his sell-by date. I stuck up for him a lot when he was England coach, and I kept thinking, no, he's got a plan. It's going to come good in the Rugby World Cup. But to get it coming good in the Rugby World Cup for Australia, it's going to take quite a bit of work, isn't it? I do have to say, in his defence, I'm not quite sure they have got the talent to succeed at the Rugby World Cup. I think they've got the talent to get to a semi-final, and that's partly because of the side of the draw they're on, where they have to beat Wales and Fiji and Georgia, and then England or Argentina, most likely. And I could see Australia beating all of those teams because the standard on that side of the draw is poor by comparison to the other side. But they need to start getting some cohesion together, and you've got guys like Carter Gordon who've got to start. Clearly a very talented player. And this is what I mean. If you pick a guy like Carter Gordon at 10 and you have the firepower he's got outside him, that says to me you're going to play in a certain way. But actually, it was like you were trying to get a square peg in a round hole because Carter Gordon's kicking game was dreadful. And some of that has to be on his own shoulders, and he will be better in future games. But I wonder how much of it is down to the fact that you were asking Carter Gordon, this kind of loose cannon of a player, to play quite a structured game that doesn't play to his strengths or the team's strengths. I wonder. And the final takeaway I'd just chuck in there is there's clearly a little bit of a mental fragility. Now, when you've only won 5 games in, was it 5 wins in 20 matches or 5 wins in 25 matches? Whatever the case, Australia have got in the habit of losing, and that is going to have an impact on a team. But the mental fragility is coming through in just really poor decisions in a game. Like I say, some of Carter Gordon's kicks out of hand were, and just Australia's tactical kicking in general was just bizarre. Their defence at times was left wanting. They just got cut to ribbons by New Zealand. And I think, in that sense, I think if you set yourselves up to play in a way that plays to your strengths and you kind of flick the switch mentally, I think you can go a long way to mitigating some of the issues that Australia are currently having, which is why I will always worry about them come a World Cup quarter-final should England play them with my England fan hat on. That's my thoughts on the mullets, the Aussies. What are yours? Leave your comments and I will see you on the next video.